The wreckage of the ship still burned when Daniel crawled out from the broken hull. Smoke filled the alien sky, thick and strange, carrying a scent that did not belong to Earth. His lungs ached, his muscles burned, and every part of him felt bruised, but he was alive. He stumbled forward, dragging his pack with him, and tried to understand where he had landed. The planet around him was silent except for the distant hum of war. He could see faint flashes on the horizon, like storms of fire. His mission had gone wrong, and now he was stranded on enemy soil alone. He checked his communicator, broken. His weapon was damaged too, the barrel bent. All he had left were his hands, his will, and the training that had kept him alive before. He walked for hours across broken fields of stone and shattered structures, ruins of what once must have been a proud city. Walls lay crumbled, towers bent, and statues of tall, elegant figures lay half buried in dust. It was not just war that had destroyed this place. Time and betrayal seemed carved into every stone. Daniel felt like a trespasser in a graveyard. As night began to fall, he found what looked like a palace half destroyed, its golden walls cracked and darkened by fire. He stepped carefully, his boots crunching over debris. The air was heavy, carrying the faint smell of ash and blood. Inside, the halls were silent, but he felt something, a presence, faint, hidden. He raised his broken weapon out of habit, even though it was useless. That was when he heard it. A soft sound like a weak breath, a whisper of pain. He turned quickly, scanning the shadows until his eyes settled on a figure slumped against a pillar. She was tall, though her posture was broken with exhaustion. Her skin had a pale glow under the moonlight, her features sharp and noble, yet worn with suffering. Her clothing, once royal, was torn and blood-stained. Daniel froze. He knew who she was. Every human soldier knew her face. The alien queen, Serenia, leader of her people, once feared across the stars. To find her here, alone and wounded, was something no report could have prepared him for. She raised her head slightly, eyes half open, pupils glowing faintly with alien light. When she saw him, her expression sharpened with fear and anger. She tried to reach for a weapon at her side, but her hand was trembling too badly to lift it. "You." Her voice was cracked but still carried command. "A human." Daniel did not move closer, not yet. He saw how weak she was, how her breath rattled in her chest. She was no threat in this state, but fear could still make her dangerous. He lowered his broken weapon, showing his empty hands. "I don't want to fight," he said quietly. She narrowed her eyes, confused by his tone. For years, her people and humans had been enemies. A human soldier finding her like this should have meant death. But he did not advance. He did not raise a blade. He only stood there steady and calm. Serenia's lips trembled as she whispered, "Finish it then. End me if you must." Daniel shook his head. "No, I'm not here to kill you." For a moment, silence filled the ruined hall. The queen stared at him as if she did not understand the words. He set his pack down slowly, unzipping it. He pulled out a small water canister, took a sip himself to show it was safe, and then placed it on the ground, sliding it gently toward her. She blinked, suspicious. Her people had told her humans were cruel, selfish, only seeking conquest. Yet, here was one offering her water. Her throat was burning with thirst, and though pride told her to refuse, her body betrayed her. She reached forward with shaking hands, lifting the canister to her lips. The water spilled a little, but she drank, her eyes never leaving him. Daniel stayed still, letting her decide whether to trust him. When she lowered the canister, her voice was hoarse. "Why, help me?" He gave a faint, tired smile. "Because you're alive. That's reason enough." Serenia could not answer. Her mind was clouded with pain and confusion. Humans had slaughtered her people, burned her cities, yet this one stood before her and spoke as if life itself was sacred. She wanted to hate him, to push him away, but her strength was gone. Daniel moved a little closer, crouching at a respectful distance. He pulled out a small med kit from his pack. "You're hurt," he said. "I can stop the bleeding at least." She almost refused, her pride rising again. But when she tried to shift, the pain was too much. Her body betrayed her once more. At last she gave a small nod. Daniel worked carefully, cleaning the wound on her side and wrapping it with bandages. His touch was gentle, steady, not like a soldier tending to an enemy, but like one human caring for another soul. Serenia watched him silently, searching his face for deception, for cruelty, but all she found was focus and quiet determination. When he finished, he sat back, letting her breathe. The silence between them was heavy, yet not hostile. For the first time in years, the Queen felt something strange. Safety. "You risk much," she said softly. "If your kind find out you helped me, they will call you traitor." Daniel looked at her, his eyes steady. "Maybe, but I'm not thinking about that right now. You needed help. That's all I saw." Her chest tightened. The words were simple, yet they struck deeper than any weapon. Outside, the night grew colder, the wind whistling through broken walls. Daniel pulled a thermal blanket from his pack and offered it. She hesitated, then accepted, wrapping it around her shoulders. The warmth was more than physical. For a long time they sat in silence, two enemies bound by fate in the ruins of a fallen world. Finally, Serenia whispered, "I do not understand you, human." Daniel gave a quiet laugh, shaking his head. "I'm just a man. Nothing more." But to her it already felt like he was something else entirely. The night passed slowly in the ruins of the palace. Daniel stayed awake for hours, listening to every sound in the distance. He could hear faint echoes of movement far away, the occasional scream carried by the wind, and the deep rumble of engines that belonged to war machines. Somewhere out there, armies were still fighting and soldiers were still hunting. If they found him, he would be executed without a second thought. If they found her, the last of her people's royalty, they would not give her the mercy of a quick death. He glanced at Serenia. The Queen slept lightly, her head resting against the pillar, the blanket wrapped tightly around her. Her breathing was shallow but steadier than before. Even in weakness, there was something powerful in her presence. She was not just a woman. She carried the weight of an entire people's memory, their fall, and their pain. Daniel wondered how she had survived this long on her own. When the first light of dawn broke through the shattered roof, Serenia stirred. Her eyes opened slowly, adjusting to the pale light. She noticed Daniel still sitting guard, his back straight, his eyes scanning the shadows. "You did not sleep," she said quietly. He shrugged, his voice low. "Not safe to." She studied him for a moment. His face was tired, but his gaze was sharp. She could see that this man had spent many nights awake, watching, surviving. He carried scars she could not see but felt. "Why do you not leave me?" she asked, her tone carrying more curiosity than hostility this time. Daniel looked at her with calm eyes. "Because if I leave you, you'll die. I can't walk away from that." She fell silent, confused again by his words. He spoke with such simplicity, as if it was the most natural thing in the universe to protect even an enemy. For her, this was not natural. For her people, survival often meant sacrifice, leaving the weak behind. To see him stay by choice, unsettled, her. They shared a small portion of food from his pack. He gave her more than himself, even though he had little left. She noticed and frowned. "You are foolish. You starve while I eat." He gave a small smile. "I'll manage. You need strength more than me right now." Her eyes lingered on him, searching for deception, but she found none. The day moved on, and Daniel decided they could not stay in the ruined palace, too open, too easy to be found. He helped Serenia stand, supporting her with his arm. At first she resisted, her pride telling her not to lean on a human, but her body betrayed her weakness again. She finally accepted his support, though she kept her chin high as if to remind herself she was still queen. They moved slowly through broken streets, hiding among the shadows. The city felt hollow, its empty structures standing like skeletons of a lost world. Daniel guided her carefully, pausing often to listen. Twice they heard patrols in the distance. The voices of soldiers speaking in alien tongues echoed through the ruins. Serenia stiffened at the sound, her hand twitching as if she longed for a weapon she no longer had. Daniel pulled her close, guiding her into a collapsed chamber where they crouched together until the danger passed. She could feel his steady breathing. Beside her, his calmness like a shield. When the patrol left, she glanced at him and whispered, "You hide well for a human." He smirked faintly. "I've had practice." They continued hour after hour until the sun hung low again. The journey was slow, but Daniel did not complain once. He carried most of her weight when she faltered, his arms strong and steady. Each time she expected him to leave her behind, he stayed. As evening came, they found an old tunnel hidden beneath a collapsed building. Daniel checked it first, shining his small light to ensure no danger waited inside. When he returned, he gestured for her to follow. "It's safer here, at least for the night." Inside, the tunnel was damp and cold, but hidden from the open sky. They sat together near the entrance, listening to the distant rumble of war above. For a while, neither spoke. The silence was not heavy this time, but thoughtful. Finally, Serenia broke it. "My people. They would not understand this. They would say I am a fool for trusting you." Daniel looked at her quietly. "Do you trust me?" She hesitated, her eyes narrowing slightly. "I do not know. You act like no human I have known before. You could have killed me. You could have left me. Yet you stay. Why?" Daniel's voice was soft, steady. "Because no one deserves to be left behind. Not you, not anyone." She stared at him, her chest tightening again with emotions she did not understand. His words carried no grand speeches, no promises. Just simple truth. Later, when the cold grew harsher, Daniel noticed her shivering. He removed his jacket and placed it around her shoulders. She frowned, her pride flaring again. "You will freeze without this." "I've been colder before," he said with a shrug. She looked at him for a long moment, then lowered her eyes. "You are strange, human." He chuckled softly. "I've heard that before." That night, she did not sleep as heavily. She found herself watching him as he dozed lightly, his hand resting near his broken weapon as if ready to defend at any moment. She wondered what drove him. Was it duty? Was it kindness? Or was he simply mad? The next morning, their journey continued. The city was growing more dangerous. Smoke rose from fresh battles, and Daniel could see more patrols sweeping the streets. The enemies were searching for something, or someone. Serenia realized with dread that they were hunting her. If they caught her, her bloodline would end, forever. Her pace grew slower as her body weakened, and Daniel noticed. He crouched before her, his eyes calm but firm. "We need to keep moving. There's a place outside the city. Old tunnels, may be safe, but you have to hold on." She closed her eyes, drawing strength from his words. His voice carried no command, yet it gave her the will to continue. As they moved again, they suddenly heard voices nearby. This time, too close. A patrol was sweeping the street ahead. Daniel pulled Serenia into the shadow of a broken wall, pressing close to hide them both. She could feel his heartbeat against her shoulder, steady but quick. The soldiers passed within meters, their weapons gleaming. Serenia held her breath, her entire body tense. One soldier paused, turning his head slightly as if sensing something. Daniel's grip tightened on her arm, ready to act. For a moment, she thought he might lunge out with bare hands if it meant keeping her safe. But the soldier moved on, and the patrol disappeared into the distance. Serenia let out a slow breath, her hands trembling. Daniel leaned closer and whispered, "We need to move faster." They hurried through side paths, avoiding open roads until they reached the edge of the city. Beyond lay open fields covered in ash, with the faint outline of mountains in the distance. Daniel studied the land, considering their chances. Serenia looked at him, her voice quieter now. You protect me as if I am yours to guard. Why? Daniel turned his eyes to her, his expression calm but firm. Because you're alive. That's enough for me. Titles, wars, sides, they don't matter right now. What matters is that you're here, and I won't let them take that away. Her chest ached with something she could not name. She wanted to argue, to remind him she was his enemy, but the words would not come. Instead, she whispered, You are just a man. Yet you stand as if you are more. Daniel gave a tired smile. I told you, I'm just a man. But to her, those words meant far more than he realized. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the ruined land. Daniel guided Serenia carefully as they moved through the open fields. Every step was heavy for her strength fading faster than he had hoped. But she did not complain. Pride held her upright even when her body threatened to collapse. Daniel stayed close, his arm steady under hers, carrying much of her weight without a word. The land stretched endlessly, ash covering the ground like snow. Broken machines of war lay, scattered, their twisted metal reflecting the dying light. Smoke still rose in the distance, a reminder that the war had not ended, only moved. Serenia's people had once ruled here, yet now she walked as a fugitive, hidden by the man she had been told was her enemy. When night fell, they reached a series of caves at the edge of the mountains. Daniel led her inside, checking for danger, before settling near a sheltered spot. He started a small fire with what little fuel he had, enough to bring light and warmth, but not enough to draw attention. Serenia sat against the wall, her eyes fixed on the flames. For a long time, neither spoke. The silence was not empty. It was filled with the weight of everything unsaid. Finally, Serenia's voice broke the quiet. I was taught your kind were monsters, that humans cared for nothing but themselves. But you... She paused, her gaze shifting to him. You risk yourself for me. I do not understand. Daniel poked at the fire with a broken stick, his expression thoughtful. Maybe. Some humans are like that, but not all. We've fought wars, made mistakes, but we also care. We help each other even when it doesn't make sense. Maybe that's the only way we survive. She studied him, trying to read the truth in his face. His words carried no pretense, no hidden agenda. They were simple, honest. That unsettled her more than lies ever could. On my world, she said slowly, weakness is despised. Leaders must show strength at all times. Compassion is seen as weakness. I learned to harden myself, to show no mercy, no softness. But now as I sit here with you, I wonder if we were wrong. Daniel met her gaze, his eyes steady. Compassion isn't weakness. It's the only thing that keeps us human. She tilted her head slightly. But you are not with your people now. You are alone with me. Does compassion not endanger you? He gave a faint smile. Maybe, but I can live with danger. I can't live with knowing I walked away when someone needed me. Her chest tightened again at his words. She looked away, her eyes glistening in the firelight, though she tried to hide it. The night wore on, and Daniel dozed lightly, his hand resting near his knife. Serenia watched him for a long time. His face was worn, lined with exhaustion, yet there was something steady in him, something unbroken despite everything he had seen. She wondered what kind of world had shaped such a man and why fate had brought him here, to her at this moment. The next morning they continued their journey deeper into the mountains. The terrain was harsh, jagged rocks and narrow paths, but it offered cover from enemy patrols. Serenia walked slowly, but determination kept her moving. Daniel supported her without complaint. As they climbed higher, Serenia spoke again, her voice carrying a rare softness. Tell me of your world. Daniel glanced at her, surprised by the question. Earth? Yes, she said. I know only what our records told us. A world of water and storms. A world of endless hunger for more. He chuckled softly. That Sounds about right. But it's more than that. Earth is complicated. We fight, we argue, but we also build, create, dream. There are forests that stretch for miles, oceans so deep no one's touched the bottom. There are cities full of lights that shine brighter than the stars. It's not perfect, but it's home. Her eyes softened as she listened. She could hear the love in his voice, the pride. For so long she had only seen humans as invaders, destroyers. But now she saw them through his eyes. Flawed, yes, but alive in ways her people had forgotten. And your family? She asked quietly. Daniel's expression dimmed. He shook his head. They're gone. The war took them. I stopped asking why a long time ago. Serenia felt a pang of sorrow she could not explain. She wanted to reach out to offer comfort, but her pride held her still. Then why fight? Why keep going? He looked at her, his eyes steady. Because if I give up, then their lives meant nothing. Because maybe, just maybe, I can make sure someone else doesn't feel that same loss. His words struck her deeply. She turned away, hiding the emotions rising in her chest. For years she had carried the burden of leadership, showing only strength. But here was a man who carried his pain openly and still walked forward. It made her question everything she had believed. As they reached a plateau, Daniel stopped suddenly, his senses alert. He held up a hand for silence. Serenia froze, following his gaze. Across the valley, a group of soldiers moved in formation, their armor glinting faintly. They were hunting. Daniel's jaw tightened. They're looking for you. Serenia's heart pounded. If they find us, they won't. He cut her off firmly. Not while I'm here. She looked at him, stunned by his certainty. He had no weapon but a knife, no backup, no army. Yet he spoke as if his word was law. They waited until the soldiers moved out of sight, then continued their path higher, into the mountains. But Serenia could not shake the feeling growing inside her. This man was not just protecting her, he was changing her. By nightfall, they reached an ancient stronghold, hidden deep in the cliffs. The gates were broken, the walls cracked, but it still stood. Serenia recognized it instantly. It was a relic of her people's past, a place once used to guard treasures and secrets. Daniel led her inside, finding a secure chamber where they could rest. Serenia sank against the wall, exhaustion pulling at her. But her mind was restless, filled with thoughts of him. Finally, she spoke, her voice quiet but firm. You risk your life for me, though I am not your kin, not your ally. You fight for me as if I matter to you. Why? Daniel sat across from her, his eyes meeting hers without hesitation. Because you do matter. Not as a queen, not as an enemy, but as a person. That's enough. Her breath caught. She had expected strategy, duty, maybe even pity. But not this. Not words so simple and pure they cut deeper than any blade. For a long moment, she could not speak. Then, slowly, she whispered, You are just a man, but you stand as if you carry the strength of many. Daniel smiled faintly. Maybe. Or maybe I just refuse to give up. That night, as the fire burned low, Serenia lay awake, her heart restless. She had lost her people, her throne, her kingdom. Yet here beside this human she felt something she thought was gone forever. Hope. The dawn came slowly over the mountain stronghold. The sky was painted in soft shades of orange and red, a quiet contrast to the chaos that had driven Serenia from her throne. She sat near the entrance, wrapped in the blanket Daniel had given, her watching the sunrise. The cold air bit at her skin, but she barely noticed. Her thoughts were tangled, heavy with worry, hope, and a strange curiosity about the human beside her. Daniel was moving among the rubble inside the chamber, gathering what supplies they had managed to carry. His movements were methodical, careful, yet there was a quiet confidence in him. Serenia studied him from a distance, seeing more than just a man. She saw courage, resilience, and a stubborn refusal to surrender. She realized she had never known anyone like him before. You move as if you've survived every battle ever fought, she said softly, almost to herself. Daniel looked up, his lips curving into a faint smile. Maybe I have. Maybe I just refuse. To die quietly. Serenia could not help but smile faintly. His words were blunt, but there was honesty in them. She wanted to understand him, to see what drove him to protect someone like her when all she had been taught was that humans were enemies. The day passed slowly. Daniel explored the hidden corridors of the stronghold, checking for weaknesses in the walls, areas where they could defend themselves if necessary. Serenia followed, leaning on him for support at times, though she kept her pride intact. She did not speak much, but every glance she gave him carried questions her lips could not form. By afternoon, Daniel had discovered a hidden chamber, partially collapsed, yet still solid enough to serve as a secure refuge. He helped Serenia inside, sitting her down on a stone ledge. Her body was still weak from the journey, but she tried to mask it, holding her posture like the queen she had always been. You need to rest, Daniel said firmly. You can't move like this for long. Tomorrow we continue, but today you regain strength. She shook her head lightly. I cannot stay idle. My people need me. Even if I am alone, I must act. He looked at her calmly, meeting her gaze. You've been alone long enough. Today I make the rules. Rest. She hesitated, her pride clashing with the weariness that threatened to overwhelm her. Slowly she nodded. The human's determination was stronger than her stubbornness, and, for once, she allowed herself to be cared for. That evening, Daniel tended to her wounds again, cleaning and bandaging carefully. Serenia watched him silently. There was a tenderness in his actions that made her chest tighten. She had lived through battles, betrayals, and the fall of her kingdom. Yet here she was, being cared for by a man she had been told to hate. Why? Do you help me? She asked finally, her voice quiet, almost vulnerable. Daniel looked up, his expression steady. Because you are alive, that's enough for me. Serenia felt a lump in her throat. The simplicity of the answer struck her more than any declaration of loyalty or strategy ever could. She had led armies, commanded ships, and made decisions that shaped the fate of entire worlds. Yet she had never felt as seen, as understood, as she did in that moment. The night deepened, and the stronghold was silent, except for the occasional creak of stone settling and the faint whisper of wind through cracks. Daniel sat near the entrance, watching the darkened landscape. Serenia joined him, wrapped in the blanket, her eyes fixed on the horizon. You risk everything for me, she said quietly, even though I am not your kin, not your friend, not even your ally. He shrugged slightly. I told you, I'm just a man, but I can't turn away when someone needs me. She studied him, seeing a truth she had not expected. A man, yet you carry the weight of many. He smiled faintly. I carry only what I choose to, and I choose to protect you. For a long time they sat in silence, two figures caught between worlds, enemies once now bound by necessity and trust. Serenia's thoughts were tumultuous, a mixture of gratitude, awe, and confusion. She had survived countless battles, faced betrayal and loss, yet here was a human who made her feel something she had not felt in years. Hope. The next day, they began to plan their next move. Daniel examined maps he had salvaged from the ruined city, tracing routes through mountains and forests, considering how best to avoid enemy patrols. Serenia contributed, pointing out places she remembered from her childhood, secret passages and hidden paths known only to the queen of her people. As they worked together, a strange partnership formed. She learned to rely on his tactical thinking, his understanding of terrain and survival. He learned to trust her knowledge of her world, her insights into the strengths and weaknesses of her enemies. Slowly a bond grew, not just of necessity but of respect. That afternoon, while scouting ahead, they were ambushed by a small enemy patrol. Daniel acted instinctively, pulling Serenia behind a boulder as the soldiers passed. His movements were swift and precise, but there were too many. He fought with what little strength he had, using agility and cunning rather than brute force. Serenia watched, her chest tightening with fear and admiration. When the patrol finally passed, they were safe for the moment. Daniel was bruised, his clothes torn, but he smiled faintly at her. "See? Nothing we couldn't handle." Serenia shook her head in disbelief. "You are reckless." "Maybe," he said lightly. "But reckless works sometimes." They continued their journey, moving carefully through forests and valleys, avoiding main roads. The closer they got to a hidden ally of hers, the more dangers they encountered. Yet with every obstacle, Daniel's resolve never wavered. His courage and determination were constant, a beacon in the darkness of her world. One night, while resting in a hidden cave, Serenia spoke softly. "I do not understand why you stay. You risk your life, your freedom, and perhaps even your mind, all for me. What drives you?" Daniel looked at her, his eyes reflecting the faint light of their fire. "I've seen too many people fall and be abandoned. I've lived through loss. I cannot stand by and do nothing when someone needs help. That's all there is to it." Her chest tightened again. She wanted to speak, to tell him he was more than a man, that he had become essential, yet words failed her. Instead, she reached out subtly, letting her hand rest briefly on his arm. It was a gesture of trust, fragile but genuine. Daniel noticed but did not speak. He simply accepted it, his presence steady, reassuring. As days passed, they drew closer to the location where Serenia hoped to find allies still loyal to her. The journey was grueling, filled with dangers both natural and man-made. Yet Daniel never faltered. He carried her when necessary, scouted ahead to ensure safety, and remained patient even when her pride made cooperation difficult. Serenia began to see humans in a new light. They were flawed, yes, often driven by fear and desire, but they also had a strength born of perseverance, hope, and loyalty. Daniel was proof of that, a living example of what she had thought impossible, a human who could be courageous, compassionate, and honorable. By the time they reached a plateau overlooking a valley where her allies might be hidden, Serenia paused. She looked at Daniel, her voice barely audible. "I am grateful, more than I can say. You have given me life when all seemed lost." Daniel gave her a small, tired smile. "You don't need to thank me. I did what I had to, that's all." But she saw it differently. To her, he was no longer just a man. He was her protector, her companion, and perhaps the first true friend she had found in years. That night, as they watched the stars from the plateau, Serenia finally spoke words she had never said aloud before. "You are just a man," she whispered, "and yet you are the only one who helped me." Daniel met her gaze, his expression calm but filled with quiet pride. "I told you," he said softly. "I'm just a man." And in the silence that followed, under the endless expanse of stars, something unspoken passed between them. A bond, formed not from politics, not from loyalty to a throne, but from trust, courage, and the simple, enduring truth that even in a universe torn by war, one man could make a difference. The valley below the plateau stretched wide, dotted with ruins, forests, and the faint glow of fires. Daniel and Serenia had finally reached the location where her loyal allies were rumored to hide. After days of traveling, avoiding patrols, and surviving on minimal supplies, they were close. Yet the danger was far from over. Daniel studied the terrain carefully. "They're here," he said, pointing to a small cluster of structures partially hidden by trees. "But there's a patrol between us and them. We'll have to move quietly, and I'll lead." Serenia nodded, leaning slightly on him for support. Her body had recovered some strength, but the journey had left her weak. She trusted him completely, now not because she had to, but because she chose to. There was a confidence in him, a human stubbornness that gave her hope. They moved like shadows through the undergrowth, slipping past enemy patrols with Daniel's careful guidance. The soldiers were unaware of their presence, scanning distant hills and ruins, focused on their own mission. Serenia marveled at how he moved, silent and precise, as if every step had been practiced over a lifetime. As they neared the hidden camp of her allies, Daniel motioned for her to stay back. "Let me handle the first approach. You stay hidden until I signal." She watched as he advanced, using the terrain to his advantage. Despite being only one man, he moved with such courage and decisiveness that even Serenia felt reassured. Soon he reached the perimeter of the camp. He crouched, observing the enemy forces guarding it. There were far more of them than Daniel could face alone. Yet he did not hesitate. Serenia felt a pang of fear for him, but she also felt pride. This man, this human, was standing against overwhelming odds for her sake. Her chest tightened as she realized how deeply she had come to rely on him. Daniel acted quickly, using stealth and distraction. He created a minor explosion using remnants of machinery nearby, drawing some of the guards away. He then darted between shadows, striking only when necessary, disabling several soldiers quietly. His movements were swift, efficient, and precise. Serenia held her breath, heart pounding, watching him face danger head-on. When the initial threat was reduced, Daniel signaled for her. "Now," he whispered. Serenia stepped forward, her presence commanding despite her weariness. Her voice, carrying authority and strength, called to the hidden allies. Slowly, figures emerged from the shadows. They recognized her immediately. Their queen, alive and unbroken. Some fell to their knees in reverence, others simply stared, disbelief and relief mixed on their faces. Daniel stepped beside her, placing a hand near his knife but remaining calm. The allies looked at him, suspicion in their eyes at first. One of them spoke, questioning why a human would be here. Serenia's gaze was sharp and unwavering. "He is the only one who helped me when all others abandoned hope," she said firmly. "He stands with me and I trust him. You will too, or you will leave us now." The allies exchanged glances. They had never seen her speak with such conviction about a human. Slowly, respect replaced doubt. The following days were filled with preparation. Serenia's forces had been scattered and weakened, but with Daniel's help they began to regroup. He shared knowledge of tactics he had learned from Earth, simple yet effective strategies to outmaneuver stronger enemy forces. Serenia saw the value immediately, and her people started to follow his lead, inspired by his courage and innovation. During this time, Daniel continued to care for Serenia. He encouraged her to rest, helped her train her people, and guided her in reclaiming control over her scattered forces. She watched him, amazed at how much he could do despite being just a man. His bravery, determination, and unwavering loyalty became a symbol for everyone around them. Then came the final confrontation. Intelligence gathered by their scouts revealed the main enemy faction was advancing toward the hidden valley. They intended to crush Serenia's forces before she could reclaim her throne. Daniel and Serenia prepared meticulously. Every strategy, every movement, and every defense was planned with precision. The morning of the battle, the air was tense. Dust swirled across the valley as enemy troops advanced, larger in number and more heavily armed than Daniel had anticipated. Yet he did not falter. He stood with Serenia, giving calm, precise orders. His presence inspired the troops, both human and alien alike, who had heard of his courage in guiding the queen. The battle erupted with sudden ferocity. Explosions shook the valley as enemy forces clashed with Serenia's loyalists. Daniel led small squads in daring flanking maneuvers, disabling key enemy positions and turning the tide of the fight. His courage was unmatched, and though only one man, he became the center of hope for the scattered and weary soldiers around him. Serenia fought alongside him when possible, her own combat skills sharpened by years of training. Together, they moved through the battlefield, their presence a beacon of resilience. Daniel's unconventional tactics surprised the enemy, while Serenia's leadership rallied her people, igniting a fierce determination to reclaim their land. At one point, Daniel found himself cornered by a group of enemy commanders. Outnumbered and outgunned, he fought with every ounce of strength, using quick thinking and agility rather than sheer force. Serenia noticed, fear tightening her chest, but she could not reach him immediately. She focused on rallying her forces, trusting him to hold his ground. Minutes later, Daniel broke through the encirclement using debris and misdirection to escape. He had fought like a man possessed, yet he remained unharmed. Serenia felt a mixture of relief and awe. This human, whom she had called just a man, was fighting with the heart of 1,000 soldiers. As the sun began to set, the enemy forces faltered. They were disorganized, demoralized by the relentless courage of Daniel and the fierce leadership of Serenia. Slowly, the tide turned. Serenia's people pressed forward, reclaiming territory piece by piece. Finally, the enemy retreated, leaving the valley in the hands of Serenia's loyalists. The battle was won, but the cost was visible in the weariness etched on every face. Daniel stood beside Serenia, bruised and tired, yet his eyes reflected satisfaction and quiet pride. The queen turned to him, her expression softening. "You are just a man," she said quietly. "And yet you have done what no army could do. You have stood by me when everyone else turned away. You are the only one who helped me, and for that I will never forget you." Daniel shook his head lightly, a faint smile on his lips. "I told you, I'm just a man." "But no man I have ever known could have done what you have," she replied firmly. "You have shown me courage, loyalty, and compassion. You have reminded me that even in the darkest times, hope can survive." Her allies gathered around, some bowing, some nodding with respect, all acknowledging the human who had changed the course of their lives. Daniel felt a strange pride, not arrogance, but the quiet satisfaction of a man who had done his best when it mattered most. In the days that followed, Serenia began rebuilding her forces and reclaiming her throne. Daniel remained by her side, not as a subject, not as a soldier under her command, but as an ally and friend. His presence was a symbol of the power of humanity, resilient, brave, and willing to stand for what was right, even in a galaxy where he was considered weak and alone. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the mountains, Serenia and Daniel stood together on the reclaimed palace balcony. The city below was quiet, the fires of war extinguished for now. She looked at him, her expression thoughtful. "You are truly remarkable," she said softly. "Not because you are strong or clever or brave alone, but because you chose to stand when everyone else would have fled. You remind me that even one life, one person, can change the world." Daniel met her gaze, quiet and humble. "I am just a man," he said again. Serenia smiled, shaking her head. "No, you are more than that. You are the only one who helped me, and that makes you extraordinary." For the first time in years, Serenia felt hope not just for her people, but for the future. She had a chance to rebuild, to restore what had been lost, and beside her stood a human who had proven that courage, compassion, and loyalty could transcend worlds. Daniel looked at the horizon, feeling the weight of everything they had endured. The battle was over, but the journey of rebuilding had only begun, yet with the trust they had forged, the alliance they had formed, and the bond that had grown between them, he felt ready for whatever came next. Together, they turned to face the city, the stars beginning to appear in the evening sky above. The alien queen and the human soldier, two lives from different worlds united by trust, courage, and the simple truth that even one person could make a difference. And in that moment, Daniel realized he was no longer just a man. He was a symbol of humanity's strength, a living testament to the power of choice, courage, and compassion. And Serenia knew that as long as he stood by her side, no enemy could ever truly break them.